Right now, beneath your feet, the global economy is balanced on a knife's edge, and that knife has a name: the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's entire oil supply moves through a channel so narrow you could drive across it in under 30 minutes. 21 miles at its tightest point. That is not a trade route, that is a throat, and someone has their hand around it. Here at Battlefield Brief, we have spent months analyzing what is buried inside the coastal cliffs lining that strait. What we've found is not just alarming, it is a fundamental rewrite of how maritime warfare works in 2026, because the threat to global energy shipping is no longer sailing on the surface. It is not a fleet you can track on radar. It is not a submarine hunt with sonar. It is underground, invisible, and it is already in position. Don't think about what 20% actually means in real numbers. Roughly 17 to 18 million barrels of crude oil every single day. Liquefied natural gas shipments powering homes across Japan, South Korea, and Europe. Container traffic feeding supply chains that touch every product in every store in the Western world. All of it squeezing through a channel flanked on one side by Oman, and on the other side by Iran. That geography is not an accident of history. It is Iran's single greatest strategic asset, and Tehran has spent decades turning it into a weapon. Before we go underground, understand exactly what is at stake on the surface, because the numbers are not abstract. They are catastrophic. The last time serious Hormuz closure fears gripped the market, during the 2019 tanker attacks, oil spiked nearly 15% in a single trading session. That was a threat, not a closure, not a single missile fired at a shipping lane, just the fear of it. Now model a real closure in 2026. Analysts at major energy research firms have estimated that a sustained Hormuz blockade would push oil prices beyond $130, $150, possibly $200 per barrel within weeks. That is not a gas price problem. That is a global recession trigger. Manufacturing slows, food prices spike, because fertilizer production is energy-dependent. Airlines ground routes. Governments that import Gulf energy face immediate fiscal crises. The economic shockwave does not stop at the pump. It moves through every artery of the modern industrial economy simultaneously. And here is the part that most coverage misses entirely. A closure does not need to last months to cause that damage. It needs to last weeks, maybe less. Because the moment insurers classify the strait as a war zone, shipping companies hail transits voluntarily. You do not even need to sink a tanker. You just need to make the risk calculation impossible to justify. Iran's strategists understand this perfectly, which is why what they have built underground is not designed to win a naval battle. It is designed to make the math of transit unacceptable. That is a fundamentally different kind of weapon, and the West has not fully reckoned with it yet. Now we go underground, because that is where Iran has been building for 20 years. The Aegis, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, did not respond to American naval superiority by trying to match it ship for ship. They are not that naive. Instead, they built downward, deep into the coastal limestone of the Zagros mountain range and the cliffs overlooking the Persian Gulf. Iran has constructed what their own military commanders have publicly called missile cities. That phrase is not propaganda. It is an accurate description of scale. These are not bunkers with a few launch tubes. These are vast subterranean complexes, honeycombed networks of reinforced tunnels, storage facilities, command centers, and hardened launch positions, designed from the ground up to serve preemptive strikes, evade satellite surveillance, and deliver overwhelming firepower with minimal warning. The engineering principles are sophisticated. Tunnel entrances are carved into existing geological formations, using the natural rock as structural shielding that no conventional bunker buster can reliably defeat without precise targeting data. And precise targeting data is exactly what Western intelligence has struggled to obtain, because these facilities are not built like a traditional military installations with telltale surface signatures. They are built to disappear into the landscape entirely, until the moment they are ready to fire. Iranian military leadership has stated publicly that hundreds of these underground sites exist along the Gulf Coast. Western analysts believe that number is not an exaggeration. Battlefield Brief has reviewed open-source satellite assessments that confirm extensive subterranean construction activity across multiple coastal provinces over the past decade. Here is the question that matters most to Western defense planners. If you cannot see these sites, you cannot target them. So how does Iran keep them invisible? The answer is a layered concealment strategy that directly counters the primary tools of modern surveillance, and it starts with heat. Every military system generates thermal energy, missile fuel storage, electronic systems, ventilation, personnel. All of it produces heat signatures that orbital infrared satellites are specifically designed to detect. Iran's engineers know this, so they have built active thermal masking directly into the facility architecture. Artificial cooling systems secure temperature-controlled air through tunnel networks, suppressing the heat differential between the facility and the surrounding rock. From space, these sites read as geology, not military infrastructure. Then there are the decoys. Western intelligence analysts have confirmed the presence of dummy tunnel entrances, false heat emitters, and decoy launch positions scattered throughout the same coastal terrain. The purpose is deliberate tactical clutter. If your surveillance system detects 40 possible launch sites, and 30 of them are engineered illusions, your targeting problem becomes exponentially more complex. Add to this the natural topographical shielding of the terrain itself. The Zagros Range creates massive radar shadow zones, areas where ground-based radar and even some airborne sensor systems simply cannot penetrate due to the angle and density of the rock. The result is a surveillance problem that even the most advanced Western intelligence apparatus has not fully solved. Battlefield Brief will tell you directly, the United States does not have a complete picture of what is buried in those cliffs, and Iran knows it. Now here is where the engineering becomes truly dangerous, because concealment is only half of the tactical equation. The other half is speed. Iran's underground launch systems are specifically designed around what military analysts call pop-up launch mechanics. The concept is straightforward in principle and terrifying in execution. The launcher remains fully concealed underground, doors sealed, heat suppressed, radar signature eliminated, until the precise moment of launch. Then the doors open, the missile fires, and the doors close again. The entire exposure window can be measured in seconds. Why does that matter? Because modern naval defense systems, including the Aegis combat system aboard US Navy destroyers and cruisers, require tracking time to engage incoming threats effectively. Aegis is an extraordinary piece of engineering. It can simultaneously track hundreds of targets and engage multiple threats in sequence, but it needs to see those threats early enough in their flight profile to calculate intercept solutions. A missile that emerges from underground at close range. Some of these sites are estimated to be within 60 to 80 kilometers of the main shipping lanes, compresses that reaction window dramatically. The missile is already past its most vulnerable boost phase before many defensive systems have completed their initial track. Now multiply that by volume. Iran is not planning to fire one missile. The entire doctrine is built around saturation, overwhelming defensive systems with more simultaneous threats than they can mathematically process. And underground pop-up launchers make that saturation possible without exposing assets to preemptive destruction first. This is not theoretical. This is the operational doctrine Iran has been building toward for 2 decades. Let us talk about numbers, because in missile defense, mathematics is everything. The Aegis combat system, the primary shipborne defense layer protecting US Navy vessels and allied warships in the Gulf, has a finite engagement capacity. Classified specifics aside, open source defense literature and congressional testimony have established that even the most advanced variants face theoretical saturation thresholds. Every defensive missile fired at an incoming threat is a defensive missile unavailable for the next. Iran's military planners have spent years studying exactly this constraint. Their anti-ship arsenal which includes the NO, the Qaeda, the Khalij-Fars ballistic anti-ship missile, and the Houthi torpedo system, is not designed around accuracy alone. It is designed around volume and simultaneity. The operational theory is explicit. If you fire enough missiles from enough different vectors at the same time, you mathematically exceed the defensive system's processing and engagement capacity. Some get through, and in a narrow waterway like the Strait of Hormuz, some getting through is enough. Here is the proximity factor that makes this even more acute. A carrier strike group operating in the open Pacific has hundreds of miles of approach distance to track, classify, and engage incoming threats. In the Strait of Hormuz, that geometry collapses entirely. Underground launchers positioned within the coastal cliffs can place missiles on target in under 2 minutes from launch. 2 minutes. Western naval commanders understand this math. It is why no US carrier strike group transits the strait itself during heightened tension periods. The vulnerability is acknowledged internally, even when it is not broadcast publicly. Iran's underground arsenal has already partially achieved its objective. It has made the most powerful naval force in history think twice about where it operates. Iran does not operate in a vacuum, and the underground missile network along the Strait of Hormuz is not just a bilateral Iran-US problem. Every government in the Gulf region is watching this capability develop with a calculation that is far more complicated than it appears. Start with Saudi Arabia. Riyadh has spent decades constructing its security architecture around American military guarantees, as bases, American Patriot batteries, American naval presence in Bahrain. But the 2019 Abqaiq attack, when Iranian-linked drones and cruise missiles struck the heart of Saudi oil infrastructure, demonstrated something that shook the kingdom's confidence. American defensive systems did not stop it. The most significant attack on Saudi oil infrastructure in modern history happened on America's watch. The UAE is navigating an even more delicate balance. Abu Dhabi has simultaneously deepened defense ties with Washington and pursued substantial economic normalization with Tehran. They share a coastline with the very strait in question. A Hormuz blockade does not just threaten tankers passing through, it threatens Emirati ports directly. Then there is Israel. Tel Aviv watches Iran's subterranean military expansion with a strategic urgency that goes beyond the Gulf, because the same engineering doctrine, deeply buried, hardened, concealed, applies to Iran's nuclear program infrastructure. For Israel, the Hormuz tunnel network and the Iranian nuclear question are not separate problems. They are really the same problem expressed in different forms. Every Gulf capital is asking the same question right now. If Washington cannot neutralize these underground sites cleanly, what does an American security guarantee actually mean in 2026? This is the part of the analysis that Battlefield Brief wants you to sit with, because it challenges a foundational assumption of Western military strategy. Deterrence, the idea that overwhelming military superiority prevents adversaries from acting, works when your adversary's assets are reachable. When you can credibly threaten to destroy what they value most, rational actors choose restraint. That calculus has governed great power competition since 1945. It is the logic behind carrier strike groups, Stratagicomber fleets, and forward-deployed military bases across the Middle East. But what happens when the primary military asset is functionally unreachable? Iran's underground missile cities represent a direct architectural answer to conventional deterrence. You cannot preemptively destroy what you cannot reliably locate, and even partially known sites present an impossible targeting problem. Bunker buster munitions, including the US GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, are designed to defeat hardened underground facilities, but they require precise coordinates to be effective against a distributed network of hundreds of potential sites, many of which are decoys. A preemptive strike campaign faces a fundamental math problem. You need near-perfect intelligence to execute it, and near-perfect intelligence is exactly what these facilities are engineered to do. This means the traditional deterrence equation is broken in this theater. The United States cannot credibly threaten to eliminate Iran's underground missile capacity in a clean preemptive strike. Iran knows this. It is the entire point of the architecture. The silos are not just weapons, they are a deterrence denial system, specifically built to neutralize the leverage that American military superiority would otherwise provide. That is a strategic achievement of significant proportions, and the West has not developed a clean answer to it. So where does this go from here? Because the underground arsenal is not static, it is expanding, and the geopolitical conditions surrounding it are not stabilizing, they are deteriorating. In 2026, the diplomatic architecture that once constrained Iranian military development has largely collapsed. The JCPOA is functionally dead. Sanctions have failed to halt Iran's missile program. They may have accelerated the domestic development of indigenous systems, specifically because import restrictions forced Iranian engineers to build rather than buy. Tehran's enrichment program has advanced to levels that were unthinkable a decade ago, and the IRGC's regional influence through Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iraqi militias, has expanded, not contracted, despite years of pressure. The most dangerous near-term flashpoint is not a deliberate Iranian decision to close the strait. It is miscalculation, a naval confrontation that escalates beyond intended parameters, a strike on an Iranian asset that triggers an automated or emotionally driven response, a domestic political crisis inside Iran that pushes leadership toward demonstrating strength externally. Any of these pathways leads to the same place, the activation of the underground missile network in a context that neither side fully controls. Western military planners are not ignoring this. The US Fifth Fleet in Bahrain has been adapting operational patterns. Allied navies, particularly the British Royal Navy and French Marine Nationale, have increased coordination in the Gulf. New defensive technologies, including directed energy systems and enhanced electronic warfare packages, are being fielded specially with the saturation threat in mind. But adaptation takes time, and the underground infrastructure Iran has already built exists right now. Today, it is not a future threat, it is a present reality that shapes every naval calculation in the Persian Gulf already. Here is the reality that nobody in Washington, Brussels, or Riyadh wants to say out loud. A localized piece of geography, 21 miles wide, flanked by cliffs full of invisible weapons, now holds effective vital power over the stability of the global industrial economy. Not because Iran is the most powerful nation on earth. It is not. Not because the IRGC can defeat the United States military in open warfare. It cannot. But because the architecture of the underground missile network has achieved something that does not require winning a war. It only requires making the cost of conflict high enough that the global economy flinches before the first missile is even fired. That is the Hormuz trap. It is not a military trap. It is an economic trap dressed in military architecture, and the West has no clear exit from it, because the solution to an unreachable underground arsenal is not a bigger bomb. It is either diplomacy that removes the strategic incentive to build these systems in the first place, or it is a conflict so large and so destructive the costs dwarf anything the global economy has absorbed in modern history. Neither option is good. Both options are on the table. The world you are living in right now is being shaped by decisions made in subterranean tunnels carved into Iranian limestone, by engineers you will never see, by commanders operating in facilities that satellites cannot fully map. The Strait of Hormuz has always been critical, but in 2026, it has become something more dangerous than critical. It has become a loaded weapon pointed at the foundation of global economic order, and the trigger is already cocked. CTA. If this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what is really being built beneath the cliffs of the Strait of Hormuz, drop a comment below right now. Do you think the West has a credible answer to Iran's underground arsenal? Or has the deterrence equation already been permanently broken? We read every single comment, and your perspective matters to this community. Hit that like button, and is this video delivered? Subscribe so you never miss a battlefield brief breakdown, and share this with someone who needs to understand what is actually at stake in the Persian Gulf, because this is the kind of story that does not make the evening news.